My friends and I went on vacation, and now I'm the local horror story. The last time I saw my friends, they were dancing. Not in a club, not at a party. They were dancing in the sterile light of an airport terminal, their bodies jerking like puppets while their faces were frozen in masks of pure, silent horror. And now, I think my turn is coming. I can feel the music in my bones. It all started with a mistake, a stupid, careless mistake made by a rich kid who'd never faced a real consequence in his life. There were four of us. Casimir, whose trust fund was so big he thought he could buy the world. Matteo, who could joke his way out of a burning building. Anja, quiet and sharp, who'd been taking Serbian lessons for years just because she liked the sound of it. And me, Cora, the observer. The one who paid attention. Our parents, thrilled we'd all turned 18 without any major felonies, funded a graduation trip. Casimir's pick, Serbia. Exotic, he called it. Untouched. We were supposed to stay at some 5-star resort in Belgrade, the kind of place with infinity pools and staff who called you by name. But Casimir, in his infinite wisdom, fucked up the booking. Bro, you're an actual dumbass, Matteo had snorted, looking at the cancellation email on Kaz's phone. Whatever. Casimir rolled his eyes, already tapping on his screen. I found another place. It's more authentic. Authentic turned out to be a 2-hour taxi ride out of the city, into hills that grew darker and more crowded with pines the further we went. The hotel was a relic, a stone building slumped against a hillside like a tired old man. It looked like it had been grand once, but now the stone was stained with dark streaks of rain, and the windows were dark, vacant eyes. The air smelled of damp earth and something else, something vaguely sweet, like rotting flowers. The lobby was dead quiet. A single woman sat behind a massive, dark wood desk. She was ancient, her face a road map of wrinkles, and her eyes, cloudy with age, fixed on us the moment we walked in. She didn't smile. We have a reservation, Casimir said, his usual confidence sounding hollow in the oppressive silence. The old woman just stared. Her lips barely moved when she spoke, her voice a dry rasp, like leaves skittering across pavement. If she stops dancing, she said, her accent thick and guttural, you better start running. I felt a cold prickle crawl up my spine. I glanced at the others. Anja looked uneasy. Matteo was already forming a joke, and Casimir just looked annoyed. Excuse me? Kaz said, forcing a laugh. The woman's expression didn't change. She slid a heavy, ornate brass key across the desk. One room, she rasped. Top floor. And if you hear music from the street, don't look. You don't want to see. We took the key and backed away, the woman's gaze following us all the way to the creaking, cage-like elevator. Just a crazy bitch, Casimir muttered once the doors rattled shut. Every country's got 'em. But his voice was tight. The room was fine, clean, but worn. The wallpaper was faded, the bed sagged, and there was only one window. A tall, narrow thing that looked out onto the empty, lightless street below. We threw our bags down and tried to pretend we weren't all creeped out. Matteo broke out a deck of cards, and we sat on the floor. The slap of the cards on the threadbare carpet, the only sound. For hours, it worked. We drank the duty-free whiskey, cheated at cards, and laughed. The jet lag was a heavy blanket, but none of us wanted to be the first to suggest sleep. It felt safer to be awake, together. It was sometime after 2 a.m. when I heard it. Faint at first. A thin thread of melody, like a music box, winding down. It was a folk tune, simple and repetitive. You guys hear that? I asked. Matteo paused, a card halfway to the pile. Hear what? Music? Casimir said, frowning. He got up and went to the window. Sounds like some local festival or something. The music grew louder, weaving its way through the glass. It wasn't festive. The melody began to sour, notes bending and twisting into something dissonant and ugly. And underneath it, a voice. A woman's voice, singing in a high, piercing keen. What the fuck is she saying? Matteo asked, joining Kaz at the window. We all crowded around, peering down into the darkness. The street was empty except for a single pool of light from a distant, flickering lamppost, And in that light, a woman was dancing. It wasn't dancing. It was a convulsion. Her body, thin and wrapped in what looked like rags, jerked and twitched. Her limbs moved at impossible angles, her back arching until I thought her spine would snap. She spun and staggered, a frantic, broken puppet, and all the while she sang. The same line, over and over. "Anja, what is it?" I whispered. Anja was standing frozen, her face pale as bone. "Pleci," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Pleci, pleci, doch ne poridi." The words repeated, drilling into my skull. The sound was wrong, inhuman. "What does it mean?" Casimir demanded, his voice sharp with fear. Anja swallowed hard. "Dance," she said. "Dance, dance until you go mad, 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 mad." As she said it, I felt a strange twitch in my fingers. My foot began to tap against the floorboards, a rhythm I couldn't control. My body wanted to move, to join the grotesque ballet in the street below. I was mesmerized, my eyes locked on the writhing figure. And then she stopped. Mid-jerk, mid-spin, she froze. The music died. The silence that rushed in was deafening, absolute. For a long second, she stood perfectly still, her back to us. Then, slowly, with a sickening, deliberate motion, she turned, her head craned around, her neck seeming to stretch. And she looked right up at our window, right at us. I couldn't see her face in the gloom, but I felt her eyes. A physical pressure, pinning me in place. "Holy shit," Matteo choked out, stumbling back and ripping the curtains shut. We stood there in the dark, breathing hard. The silence from outside felt heavier than the music had. "It's a psycho," Casimir said, his voice shaking despite his attempt at bravado. "Some fucking druggie, that's all." The receptionist, Anja, whispered. "Caz," she told us. "If she stops dancing, you better start running," Matteo finished, his face ashen. He snapped his fingers. She was talking about her. "That fucking lady." "That's insane," Caz yelled, his fear finally boiling over into anger. "This is ridiculous. I'm not staying here. We're leaving. Now." He strode toward the door. He didn't even have his hand on the knob when we heard it. Tap, tap, tap. It came from the window. We all froze, whipping around to stare at the curtains. It wasn't the sound of a branch or the wind. It was rhythmic, deliberate. 3 sharp raps against the glass, 4 floors up. "Is it her?" Anja breathed, her eyes wide with terror. "No way," Matteo snapped, his voice cracking. "How could she get up here? We have to get the fuck out of here." This time, no one argued. We didn't grab our bags. We just ran. Down the hall, the stairs, taking them 3 at a time. The hotel was tomb silent. The lobby was empty. The ancient receptionist was gone. The front door stood wide open, a black rectangle gaping into the night. We burst out into the cold air and just ran. Down the winding road, away from the slumped stone building. As we sprinted, the woods on either side of us felt alive, the trees like skeletal figures watching us pass. I could hear the music again, not from the street, but inside my own head, a faint, maddening loop. "I hear it," I gasped, stumbling. "The song." "You're imagining it, Cora," Casimir shot back, not even looking at me. "Just run." Was I? I felt the urge again, the twitch in my hands, the desire to let my feet fly in something other than a panicked sprint. We eventually hit a main road and flagged down a truck that took us to a brightly lit, blessedly normal motel. We collapsed into a room that smelled of bleach and desperation, and the relief was so profound it felt like a physical blow. The next morning, no one had to say it. We were going home. The trip to the airport was a blur of exhaustion and adrenaline. The flight itself was tense. We barely spoke. We just wanted to be home, to put it all behind us as some collective, fucked-up hallucination. When we landed, the relief was intoxicating. We walked off the plane and into the terminal, the familiar buzz of an airport, a comforting balm. But something felt off. The air was too heavy, too humid for home. The chatter of the crowd around us wasn't in English. I looked at the ads on the wall. The letters were Cyrillic. My blood ran cold. I stopped walking. The others stopped with me, their faces mirroring my own dawning horror. And then we saw it. Across the terminal, above a gate, a large blue and white sign. Dobro li u. Serbiju. Welcome to Serbia. A choked sob escaped Anja's lips. Casimir just stared, his face a mask of disbelief, and then I looked at Matteo. His head gave a small, sharp jerk to the side. Then his arm twitched. His eyes were wide, pleading, but his body was no longer his own. A foot scraped forward, then the other, a clumsy, shuffling step. He was dancing. Then Anja. Her hands flew up, fingers splayed, as her shoulders began to shudder in a grotesque rhythm. Casimir let out a strangled roar of protest, fighting it, his whole body rigid with strain. But then one of his legs kicked out, then the other. They were all moving, their bodies stolen from them, puppets in a silent, horrific performance. The music started in my head, louder this time, clearer, and I felt my own feet begin to move. A slide, a shuffle. I opened my mouth to scream, but the only sound that came out was a high, thin note. The song. It was my voice. I was singing. Plesi, plesi, dokne poludish. Poludish. Poludish.